Castle Rock, with its charming streets and ivy-clad homes, hid secrets as old as the town itself. But the appearance of an eerie glyph etched onto a public bench had set the town's rumor mill spinning. It was intricate, archaic, and unfamiliar. Alongside it, the lifeless body of a town resident hinted at a sinister connection. Hannah, with her piercing blue eyes and a penchant for riddles, was called to the scene. Known for her cryptology skills, she had helped the police before, decoding seemingly indecipherable patterns. She knelt beside the glyph, tracing its lines, her brow furrowed in concentration. Paul, a journalist with a scruffy beard and keen instincts, had been following the strange appearances of these symbols for his column. He watched Hannah, notebook in hand, intrigued not just by the mystery, but by the woman attempting to solve it. "Our first tangible lead," he murmured, snapping a photo of the glyph. Hannah looked up, catching his gaze. "This isn't just art, it's a location," she replied, holding up her own sketch of the symbol. It bore a striking resemblance to a child's drawing of an old playground. Intrigued, Paul approached, introducing himself. "Paul," he extended his hand. "I've been tracking these glyphs." She shook his hand, a hint of a smile on her lips. "Hannah, and it seems we're hunting the same ghost." Together, they started meticulously studying the mysterious glyph. 4 days later, a chilling report interrupted their research. Another body was discovered at the old elementary school. The police said the dead woman was a retired schoolteacher. This gruesome finding not only heightened the urgency of their investigation, but also solidified the connection to the initial glyph. The school, once filled with laughter and screams, now held a dark significance in their quest for answers. After the police force had done its job, the old elementary school stood silent, its playground overtaken by nature. Rusty swings creaked in the gentle breeze, echoing memories of happier times. Hannah and Paul walked side by side, feeling the weight of the place's forgotten history. "We're looking for something. A sign. Another glyph, maybe," Paul pondered aloud, his camera scanning the surroundings. Hannah, on the other hand, felt a pull towards the sandbox, now overgrown with weeds. Kneeling down, she brushed away the dirt and leaves, revealing a piece of wood with another glyph, more intricate than the last. "This is it," she whispered, beckoning Paul over. As he bent down to photograph it, Hannah noticed something buried partially in the sand, a tattered teddy bear, one eye missing and fur matted with age. Tied around its neck was a faded ribbon with a note attached. Paul read the note aloud, "Where dreams soared and friendships were forged." Both exchanged a glance, understanding the implication. The killer was leading them on a twisted journey through his past. But where? Where did dreams soar? The answer came a couple days later. Another body in a place once visited by the kids, the treehouse. The body itself belonged to a man who used to play there as a child. That's what the note pointed to. Every Castle Rock native knew of the legendary treehouse in the woods, where kids used to forge pacts of eternal friendship. But it had been abandoned for years after one of the kids fell from tree and spent weeks at the hospital. The dense canopy of the Castle Rock woods cast long, dappled shadows, the lingering sunlight barely breaking through. Following an old, winding path, Hannah and Paul's footsteps were the only sound, aside from the occasional rustling of leaves. "There," Paul whispered, pointing to a towering oak. High above, the silhouette of the treehouse emerged, a relic from a time when childhood dreams were still alive. As they climbed the rickety ladder, the wood groaned, protesting the weight of their grown-up burdens. Inside, dust danced in the thin shafts of light, revealing a time capsule, comic books, candy wrappers, and old board games. But it was the wall that caught Hannah's attention, a faded mural of pictures of children playing, except one figure was viciously scratched out. Paul approached a corner, where a small metal box sat covered in dust. Inside, they found childhood drawings. Each depicted a happy family, but over time, one figure, a boy, became increasingly isolated. often drawn in black or red. "These are memories," Hannah mused, her voice soft, "but they're tainted with anger and resentment." A chilling breeze swept through the treehouse when Paul found a note pinned on the outside. He read it with a growing sense of dread, where innocence was drowned and trust was broken. They could not wait any second. Both knew the next location, a community pool, once a hub of joy, but now infamous for a drowning incident 3 decades ago. The weight of the killer's tortured past was leading them deeper into the heart of Castle Rock's darkest memories. They had to decipher his next move before another life was claimed. The dilapidated community pool, now drained and covered in graffiti, was a haunting image of neglect. The echo of children's laughter had long been replaced by an eerie silence. Its chain-link fence was bent and broken, allowing Hannah and Paul easy entry. Inside the pool's cracked basin, they could make out the remnants of another glyph. Surrounding it were little tiles, each bearing a name. One tile was shattered, its pieces scattered. Paul crouched down, trying to fit the tile pieces together. "It's a name," he said, finally making out the word. "Eddie." Eddie, Hannah recalled. The boy who drowned here all those years ago. Rumors were that it wasn't an accident, that he was killed. As they pieced together the tragedy, they realized the drowned boy might be the scratched-out figure from the treehouse drawings, a victim in childhood, now possibly the perpetrator. Near the deep end, Hannah stumbled upon a child's mask, broken and algae-covered, reminiscent of the one Eddie wore on that fateful day. Holding the mask, a note slid from its eye socket. Paul unfolded it. "Where home isn't safe and nightmares are real." Hannah's heart raced. "The ghost house," she whispered, referencing an old abandoned house in Castle Rock, notorious for being the home of the drowned boy's family. But as they prepared to leave, a chilling realization struck them. The intervals between the glyphs and the subsequent tragedies were shortening. Time was running out, and the ghost house might not only hold another clue, but could very well be the stage for the killer's next act. The ghost house, perched atop a desolate hill, loomed over Castle Rock, its windows like hollow eyes staring vacantly. Legends said screams echoed from its walls, and no child dared approach it after sunset. Hannah and Paul, steeling their nerves, approached the creaking front door. It swung open with a reluctant groan, revealing dark, dust-choked corridors. The air was thick with the weight of untold stories. In the living room, decayed furniture was arranged in a grotesque parody of domesticity. At the center stood a table, atop which lay another glyph meticulously carved into the wood. This one depicted a family, 2 adults and 2 boys. One of the boys was circled in red. Beside the glyph was an old photo album. Flipping through, they found pictures of a young boy, the same from the drawings. The final page bore a newspaper clipping detailing the boy's death. Beneath it was a handwritten note. Home was where the horror began. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked above them. Hannah and Paul exchanged anxious looks. The killer was there, watching, waiting. Paul motioned for Hannah to stay quiet, pointing towards the stairs. As they ascended, the chilling sounds of a lullaby played in reverse reached their ears. They were getting close. Reaching the top, they found a room adorned with glyphs and manic writings, a shrine to a stolen childhood. At its center stood the killer, back turned, humming the distorted lullaby. They had to act fast. The next victim's life hung in the balance, and confronting the ghost of Castle Rock's past was the only way forward. The room, lit only by the dim glow of flickering candles, felt oppressive. Walls plastered with manic scribbles narrated a life of torment and pain. The killer stood still, his back to Hannah and Paul, lost in his own reverie. "Who are you?" Paul demanded, his voice echoing through the haunting silence. "Are you Eddie?" Slowly, the killer turned. His face was scarred, eyes reflecting decades of pain. "I am the forgotten child of Castle Rock," he whispered. "I am back." Hannah stepped forward, the weight of understanding heavy in her eyes. "Eddie? Is that you?" The man's face twitched into a grimace. "Eddie drowned in that pool. I am what was left behind. I am his brother Ethan." Paul, sensing an opportunity, tried to reason with him. "Ethan, we've seen your memories, felt your pain, but this path of revenge, it won't heal those wounds." But Ethan's face darkened. "You can't understand. My father did that to him. My father did that to us. Every day, everywhere, at school, at home, and everyone knew about it. Did they stop him? Did our teacher stop him? Did our swimming coach stop him? Every glyph, every location was a chapter of our suffering, and they must pay." Hannah, holding the tattered teddy bear from the sandbox, approached cautiously. "This was yours, wasn't it? We can help you find peace, Ethan, but not like this." For a moment, Ethan's facade cracked. The lost boy within emerged, seeking solace. Suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance. Castle Rock's police force, having been called by Paul, were closing in. Ethan's eyes darted frantically, his moment of vulnerability replaced by panic. But Hannah's plea had reached him. Instead of fleeing, he sank to the floor, surrounded by the remnants of his shattered childhood. As the police stormed in, detaining Ethan, Hannah and Paul exchanged weary glances. They had confronted the shadows of Castle Rock's past, revealing a tortured soul seeking redemption. Hannah approaches him. "Ethan," she says gently, "this isn't over. You can still find peace." Ethan looks up at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. "How can I?" he asks. "How can I forget what my father did to us?" Hannah kneels down beside him. "You can't forget," she says, "but you can choose how it defines you. You can choose to let it consume you, or you can choose to learn from it and move on." Ethan stares at her for a long moment, then nods slowly. "Move on," he whispered, "but I don't know how." Ethan looks up at them, his eyes filled with some sort of gratitude. The story of the forgotten child would forever change the town's history, a painful reminder of the demons lurking beneath its idyllic surface. Ethan was taken into custody, but the town of Castle Rock was left grappling with the chilling revelations. News of his tragic past and vengeful present spread like wildfire, igniting debates and forcing residents to confront their own buried secrets. Hannah and Paul, once mere acquaintances, now shared an unbreakable bond. They found themselves at the center of media attention, but their focus remained on Ethan. Both believed that underneath the killer's exterior was a damaged soul crying out for understanding. Visiting him in his confinement, Hannah kept reaching out. "Ethan, your actions can't be justified, but your pain can be understood. There's a chance for redemption." Behind cold bars, but with a hint of warmth in his eyes, he responded, "I've been in a prison long before this one. Maybe now I can finally be free." Paul continued to write about Ethan's story, transforming his column into a series discussing Castle Rock's forgotten tragedies and its need for reconciliation. It became a beacon for other townsfolk to share their buried traumas, shedding light on the dark corners of the community. The playgrounds, schools, and other locations that once held terrifying implications began to change. Volunteers, led by Hannah, started restoring them. A memorial plaque placed nearby in memory of Eddie. This is a short story by The Confessor. If you're enjoying our content, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more of the content you love. Thanks for being part of our community.